Audio check one, two. Audio check one, two.
Hi, folks. Uh, Thank you all. I know we have a handful of people on Zoom. Thank you. We have a few people here uh, at the LOB, and we're going to start in 2 minutes. We want to give people a chance, a few more people to arrive, and then we're going to get started. Thank you. Okay, folks. Again, welcome. This is the second meeting of the Connecticut Promise Task Force. I appreciate everybody being part of this. Kelvin, I think you're online. Am I right?
I am here, Richard. Hello, everyone.
You're
Can you,
muted.
can you hear me?
Bear with us 1 second. We're just doing a little technology check here. Kelvin, can you try again? We're just seeing if
Sure.
we,
Can you hear me now?
nope, still did not hear you. Bear with us another minute.
Nathan, you can hear me, right?
Oh, TTN. I apologize.
No problem. We see you on the Zoom, but we can't hear you yet. So we're going to try to get the sound turned on here in the in this room. Hello. Sorry for the delay, folks. We're still waiting to be turned on. Again, sorry for the delay. Bear with us.
Okay.
All right, folks, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Just a couple little adjustments. Kelvin says that he appreciates you all being here and wants me to also convey that it is a lot of work being done behind the scenes also in terms of gathering more research, data, information, and sort of a context for our work. I also just want to say, if we're not able to fix the sound issues with the Zoom, I'm going to encourage people to then just submit any questions you have or any comments you have into the chat, and we'll, no chat, there is no chat. Let's see.
Yeah.
Can they? Do you have it fixed? No?
Well, they can, I mean, y'all have numbers, they could probably.
So we don't have a chat function on this particular Zoom. So I'm going to suggest to people, sorry about this, and hopefully we'll get this fixed as we go along, but we're going to do the best we can. And I'm going to suggest that folks email their questions or comments, and we will try to get to them as quickly as possible. And they should email them to Jazz. Can you give me your email address though, just in case, or is it? Can you share that with folks? Do you have?
If you want to submit a question, you can email me at jasaida.perez-acevedo@cga.ct.gov.
You might have to spell some of that.
Yeah.
Spell that out.
So my first name is Jazaira, Jazaira. So period, Perez, Perez, hyphen, Acevedo, Acevedo @cga.ct.gov.
Okay. Again, sorry about that, but we will do the best we can in terms of getting your questions or comments as part of this. This meeting, though, primarily is about the review of materials, again, to give us sort of a level set and a grounding in terms of where we are with this work or what it's really part of. And before I go on, I just want to give folks a chance to, again, introduce themselves. We're going to go around the room here, and then we're going to ask the folks online just quick introductions.
Patricia Melton, New Haven Promise.
Kelonda Mall, Waterbury Promise.
Savon Hines, Hartford Promise.
And again, Richard Sugarman, co-chair of the task force. And the folks online, who do we have online, Jazz?
Online, we have Ayana and
Encarnacion,
Encarnacion, yep. Nathan Fuest,
Nathan Feuerst,
yep. Jeff Berry
Jeff Berry.
and Kevin Roldan.
Kevin Roldan.
Roldan, which
Okay. Thank you all for being there. Is there anybody else online that we missed? Okay. Thank you, folks. So I think we want to start with, we sent out a few attachments to earlier emails and in this invitation. And I just want to, I'm not going to go through all of these in great detail. I'm hoping that you all have had a chance to look at them. And again, I want to make sure if you have any questions that we get to your questions or comments. But the first document that we sent, and are you able to put that up? The first document that we sent was from the Office of Legislative Research, and it was about the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program. And it basically described the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program and the criteria and the benefits of that program. I want to make sure everybody has that. It also described the total pool of funds for that program and how that has changed over the years. If I'm looking at it correctly, in fiscal 25, the pool for that program is $45,397,000, just to make sure everybody has that as a frame of reference. And it has varied from 33 million to this high, to at one point during the pandemic, 57 million, but this is the other high point of 45 million in that pool, that Roberta Willis pool. And that pool both goes to students in Connecticut, both from a need-based standpoint and a merit-based standpoint. And the awards are up to $4,500 at this point, although that has also varied over time. Okay. Any questions on that? Anything that we're missing on that particular document? The second document we shared is about other tuition-free or debt-free higher education programs across other states, to really put it in the context of where does Connecticut sit relative to other states. And I want to say that most states have some sort of a tuition-free, debt-free program. I'm also going to make the statement that in many of these states, it is support or financial aid for community college attendance. There are some states where it goes beyond that in terms of, hi Mona, in terms of providing support for 4-year colleges, and in some cases even for technical schools or non-baccalaureate awarding colleges. There's quite a variety, and again, I want to say it's most states. We sent you a document that compares them on a lot of different factors. And again, rather than go through all of that, I'm just going to make sure that each of you, if you have not looked at that, to take a look at that as we go forward in this work. Some of those programs, I just also make a note, some of those programs also require that treat it as a loan, as a forgivable loan, and require that the students stay in their states beyond graduation in order to have the grant or the loan forgiven. So that's one of the elements that we don't really relate to here, but that is the case in other states. I'll also say that in terms of the sources of funding for many of those programs, a variety of sources of funding, and it's something that we certainly should be thinking about in this group. but the sources of fundings include things like portions of the lottery take in those states, or special taxes that might have been applied, or fractions of taxes that are in place. And it's usually not part of a state income tax. It's usually like a special tax initiative that goes to support these programs. And in some cases, the university system or the public universities contribute to supporting these programs. I'll stop there, just give folks a chance. And Mona, if you could just introduce you, just push the button on the right so it's red, and just introduce yourself quickly.
Good afternoon. I'm Mona Lucas, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment at UConn.
Glad to see you, Mona. Any questions on that particular document or those other state programs, or things that you want to add to that?
This is Patricia. In looking at it, I mean, it's a lot to digest. It's going to require some analysis, like particularly when it comes to Connecticut, what's already on the table, how these different benefits work together to really find where the gaps are. Because I think probably no one wants to duplicate, even though the cost of higher ed is quite high. So yeah, I just think it's going to require a really deeper dive to really be precise
Some additional
research.
Some additional analysis and research. Yep. I think it'd be really helpful, of course. Yeah. As opposed, what we have here is raw data, right? And we need.
Right.
we
I
need
think
to
this
get
is just like an
examples.
initial sort of sweep.
Other input, questions, comments?
Hi, it's Savan. So just to add to that, right, we don't want to compare apples to bananas, right? So that none of us are going backwards, I think, in terms of saying only community college. So it might make sense to look at programs that support both community college and four-year programs, since we all do, as opposed to looking at ones that just support community college, because that's not really a valid comparison, unless we're talking about new programs that are going to start in Connecticut that are going to be substantially different in what they support. So that would be my one thing.
It may not be a valid comparison to what the existing Promise programs offer,
Right.
but it may be an option that we want to look at in terms of a Connecticut Promise.
Yeah, I would say that you're just not going to find many statewide programs that support anything more than community college. I think
Vast
it's
majority.
yeah, the vast majority, just the prohibitive costs. Although there are many promise programs like our programs that support four-year colleges. And then there are some statewide grants, but they're very small that may go towards four-year, like $500 as opposed to $3,000.
Yep. But let me just make sure, again, just in terms of full information here, there are state programs like the Hope Scholarship in Georgia, and like, I want to say, a similar program in Florida and Texas, where they don't necessarily provide scholarships for many students. They have a more select group of students, the top 10% of their class, or certain students that achieve really high levels of achievement, and they get full rides and full tuition to the state universities. So that's another way of coming at that. And I think for right now, it's important for us to stay really open-minded in terms of what this might look like and what the various models might be.
Yeah, I would add to that that when you're really thinking of promise, you're thinking of probably, particularly a statewide promise would cover many students as opposed to, let's say, your merit or whatnot.
Any other thoughts, comments before we move on? The next, anything online, any questions coming in, Jazz? Okay. The next document that we wanted to share was really to look at the existing Promise programs in Connecticut. And we shared a document that summarized those programs, but we're going to have more of a full description and discussion here in just a minute. But you do have that as one of the documents in your packet. And the last document that I believe we shared was just another take on comparing statewide programs, and it was a select group of statewide programs, starting with Alaska, going through the Oregon Promise, the Tennessee Promise, Rhode Island, West Virginia, and so on. But it was just another version of looking at and comparing other state programs. Those are, I believe, the documents that we shared. What I'd like to do now is have each of the Promise programs in Connecticut, starting with New Haven, just describe your program. And I want to make sure that we're all level set in terms of what already exists in Connecticut when we talk about Promise programs. But I also want to make sure that people understand that there are differences and uniquenesses to each of these programs. And again, as we think about Connecticut Promise and what this might look like, there certainly is a model that says that other states, here's a uniform Connecticut Promise model. But there could be other features that say, here is a way of allowing for customization or individualization. It tends to the way we think in Connecticut in terms of individual towns and communities. So I think it is possible to think of building that in to our thoughts and recommendations. But Patricia, why don't you go ahead and describe New Haven Promise for folks?
Okay, thank you, Richard. So I'm just going to go through a general summary of who we are, and then I will get more into the tuition. I don't even want to really say tuition, because our promise can be applied to more than tuition. It's really applied to the total cost of education. So we were founded in 2010. So we're obviously the oldest program here in Connecticut. We're incentive based, so we're really focused on how to motivate students to achieve and to know that they can go to college without being burdened with a huge amount of debt. We have roughly about 700 in-state students. We do fund, not with the sort of tuition benefit, but we do support students who go out of state with our talent and workforce development. So we continue to service our students with programming after they graduate from college. And we do now fund a specific HBCU scholarship with 6 HBCU schools. And the tuition benefit varies. To date, we've given out $42 million since 2010. Our first cohort was the high school cohort of 2011 was our first students who matriculated. And let's see, what else do I have? So the high points is that, just overall $42 million. We've had 1,400 of our kids have earned bachelor's degrees, 86%. And really, I would say about 90, even more than 90% of our students go to 4-year colleges, which is a little different than a lot of other Promise programs, particularly the community college Promise movement. And about 1,700 of our scholars, we've brokered internships and job placement. So we really focus on economic development and a full comprehensive model. So that's the general overview. Now, when we get into the actual benefit, what the requirements for our scholarship, which is very similar to many Promise programs, just about all, really, if they're calling themselves a Promise program, is it's a residency component. So students have to live in the city and be in the public schools for a minimum of ninth grade through 12th grade. Our model is based, once again, on the commitment of families to stay in our city, invest in our city, support public schools, and pay taxes. I didn't add death in there. They don't have to die in the city. But No, no, they don't. So for instance, if a family, a student is family lives in the city and they enroll in public schools in pre-K or K, they get 100% of the benefit. And then it levels off to 65%. So let's say someone decides to go to, I don't know, a parochial school. We don't fund private schools, a parochial school, and then transfers in just for high school. So there's still additional benefits. Let's see, they must have a 3.0 weighted GPA or above. We do have a last chance scholarship that's called Passport. That's 2.5 to 2.9. And primarily because we want to motivate all students. So it's really, I think the foundation of our Promise program was to strengthen the public schools, to really draw families in, to get them to stop moving out of the city. 90% attendance rate, and we are one of the few programs that has a community service requirement. I know that Tennessee does. Their requirement is in college, but ours is 40 hours of community service in high school. So once the student earns Promise, that is their scholarship. They don't have any other obligation except to go to school and, to do well. Our benefit is amplified by our college partnerships. So this is not unusual. There are really all the Promise programs across the country have partnerships with particularly in-state colleges. Our, UConn is a huge partner of ours. We have any number of partners. We all have these partners. And so given like all of our scholars who go to UConn get an additional $5,000 regardless of need. So it really adds up very quickly. And I think UConn has that with all Promise programs. I think that's their commitment in the state. So just to give you some sense of how much the benefit is, at UConn, it can be anywhere from $5,850 to $15,000. That's without the $5,000. Okay, so when you add that $5,000 on, it gets a pretty sweet deal. And the average award of our Promise Scholars, where we have almost 250 at UConn, is $10,000 per year. And it renews as long as a student maintains a 2.0 GPA, is making academic progress, and maintains a full-time load, then that would be $40,000. So
Can I ask you one question,
Yeah.
Patricia? Does that amount vary because of the
Residency.
years of residency?
Yes.
Okay.
And our scholarship is not a last dollar scholarship. We're also one of the few Promise programs who does not do a sort of a last dollar that comes in after all financial aid. We call ours a middle dollar. So we come in after Pell and we don't look at any other scholarships. And the other distinction is a number of scholarship programs are just restricted to tuition. Our scholarship is focused on total cost of education. So if tuition, we want to maximize dollars that students are getting. Some scholarships, like the Gates Millennial Scholarship, is restricted to tuition. So we then come in over that. And which is one reason why we don't do last dollar. So we have various partnerships, the 5,000. We do have private college, nonprofit partnerships with like the University of New Haven, Quinnipiac. That's generally 25,000 guaranteed grant aid from those institutions. And our match is 5,000
25,000 or 20?
from the institution.
25,000?
Yes, from, let's say, University of New Haven, 25,000, and then we add up
But
to
you-
5.
Am I right? You all have a different formula of
Yes.
award for public universities than from private colleges?
Yes. So when we initially started, the amount was based on pegged to tuition. That is still the case with the 4 CSCUs, but we then, decided to unpeg it at UConn because of just the increase in tuition costs. We couldn't keep up, you know. Sorry, Mona. So that's, so it varies. So, depending on we have even a special formula for community college because we were looking at the total cost of education. So not just tuition, but other costs. So, again, it's on here on this sheet. So it varies. And then the requirements to maintain it is a 2.0. They must maintain 12 credit hours, but even at 12 credit hours, students are going to graduate in 4 years. They need to do on average more like 15. We do FAFSA. We actually run a completely virtual FAFSA that anyone can participate to complete FAFSA online. That's a requirement of ours because we want all dollars on the table first before obviously our dollars come in. And you cannot be on SAP or Bursar Hold. In other words, you have to be a good citizen. Yes. Yes. That's pretty much it. All the other stuff, I think I actually covered number 4, and the other stuff is more administrative. Thank you.
Patricia, thank you. So New Haven Promise, and I want to just do a test. I think we've been told that the chat is now, that the volume is now good on the Zoom. Can I ask someone on Zoom to just speak so we see if we hear you?
Hello, everyone.
Ayana, thank you so much. We hear you, Ayana. Hallelujah. Jeff, did you have a question from earlier?
Yeah, I did. I was curious, how does it work? Let's say one of your students decides to go to a community college and then transfer to UConn. What does that look like in regards to funding?
Patricia, and then I'll give other people a chance later, but Patricia, yep.
Yes, the funding increases. So the funding is really varies depending on the institution. And just to answer that, there is restriction. We give a student 5 years and 3 years. 3 years at a community college, so we'll fund them. They can take 1 year of deferment, but they do have to sort of finish up and move on or go to the workforce. And then it's the same at a 4-year college. They can take a 1-year leave, but then they really have to finish up.
Thank you, Jeff. And thanks, folks who are on the Zoom, for hanging in there while we had the technical difficulties. Savannah, I want to give you a chance to talk about Hartford Promise and what distinguishes it.
Can I ask one quick question? When you said that you don't take into account other scholarships, does that mean that students get refunds?
They get refunds, but we don't go over the total cost of education.
Okay.
So, that's, I don't know, Mona, you may know the answer to this, when that restriction went in, so that, because I think back in the day, students could just take even more than the total cost of education. So it's pretty much locked at, here is the total cost: room and board, books, travel, insurance, blah, 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 and so forth and so on. So that's the total cost. So yes, our students, for instance, it's not unusual that our students will get a refund at Stanford, or let's say Waterbury, where UConn doesn't have like residential, but then there's the Brown building there, so they need money for travel, they need money for other expenses.
Okay.
Thanks.
Savannah?
Yes, so Hartford Promise was originally begun with thoughts in 2014, officially founded in 2015, and our first cohort class was 2016. The similarities and some differences. So our award is regardless, you must still do 4 years of high school at a Hartford Public High School, be a Hartford resident, graduate with a 3.0 cumulative GPA and a 93% attendance rate. Our slightly higher attendance rate was tied to Hartford Public Schools really pushing for increased attendance and fighting the absenteeism crisis that they were dealing with. So this criteria was set in conjunction with them. We do not do anything graduated based on earlier on. It's really based on the 4 years of high school. The other big difference in terms of use of the scholarship is that you can use the scholarship at any nonprofit 2 or 4 year institution in the country. About now, close to 80% of our students choose Connecticut schools, but we do allow them to go out of state with our award, and then they still get our full support. Our award has been $5,000, up to $5,000. Again, looking at the cost of education in terms of anything on the fee bill, up to $5,000 per year over the 4 years, so $20,000. We do have partnerships with a number of schools, both in-state and some out-of-state. So UConn, Central, Eastern, but also Northwestern, Holy Cross, Amherst, and Trinity just became partners as well. But partnership for us is the funding, but and the match, but it is also really the partnership in terms of working together for the success of students. So I'd say the other thing that's really important is we talk about Hartford Promise being more than a scholarship, and we are really very intentional about the wraparound support. So we have teams in the high schools that are working with students early on to say you're on track. This is here for you. Many students don't believe college is possible, especially when they're looking at the cost. So knowing that it's possible, helping them to apply to reach schools and things, FAFSA forms, et cetera. I think we all do that. Then when they start college, they each have an assigned coach who is reaching out to them proactively and helping them. So we have a bigger team because of that. So all of our students have coaches, whatever school they go to. We do use a cohort model to try and keep together students who are coached, whether they're at UConn, Central, Eastern, or like I have the students at North Carolina A&T and Howard, for example. And then the third part is, I think we've all realized that a college degree is not the end game. And so really an emphasis on how do we support students. Our numbers are about 80%, we believe, are coming back to Connecticut, maybe a little bit higher, but also what's the focus on what can they do with that college degree? So building that network, working on internships, pipelines, career fairs, et cetera, and helping students place them. In terms of total numbers, so we're at 1,300 students who've gotten our scholarship so far, are qualified for our scholarship. We currently have about 500 in colleges around the country, again, close to 80% here in Connecticut, and 450 graduates. So growing and continuing to expand as we look at what are the needs of students and trying to be responsive to that.
Thank you, Savon. Let me just highlight a couple of things that I hear as distinguishing things here. In New Haven Promise, there's a tiered residency piece that determines the amount of the scholarship. In Hartford, there's a residency 9th through 12th grade, and it's consistent in terms of all those students that are there from 9th grade through 12th grade receive the same scholarship. Hartford provides a scholarship to schools in state and out of state. Although most of the partner schools are in-state schools, there are some that are out of state. New Haven does have an out of state, primarily in-state, but with HBCUs, a select group of HBCUs, where the scholarship is offered out of state.
And it's completely different.
Sorry about that. It's a completely different structure. So the HBCU scholarship is 20,000 a year, so 80,000, and we do have partnership agreements, which brings it up to 120,000
Richard,
over 4 years.
But it does not cover other out-of-state schools. Okay,
can I add?
please, Savon.
Can't believe I forgot to mention the
please.
other big news for Hartford students is that this year, starting with the high school class of 2025, the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving wanted to make a big statement on the cost of education, celebrating their 100th year. So they have paired with us, created a Greater Future Scholarship. So every student now, starting with the high school class of 2025 and going forward, is eligible for up to an additional 20,000 per year paired with our 5,000. So that makes it $100,000 scholarship again for any school in the country.
Yeah.
So that's
Very
a
important.
huge
Yeah,
financial
very important. Thank you.
difference.
I just want to add one other thing, Kalanda, and then I want to get to you in terms of Waterbury. The other thing that I hear is that in both of these cases, and I think it's also true in the case of Waterbury, we're talking about comprehensive promise programs that in addition to the significant financial awards that are part of that, there is a tremendous amount of need and emphasis on programming, supports, and services for students in high school and in college, and to your point, Savon, now beyond college, that we're talking about really a comprehensive program here. Yep.
I have a question. Is your scholarship a last dollar, middle dollar, first
So
dollar?
we come in, we're now closer to middle. We come in, we count other scholarships, but we do not count loans in any way, so that we come in before loans, so students don't have to take out loans. We don't subtract that anymore. So, and Pell also counts towards it.
Okay. Kalanda, Waterbury.
Yes, thank you. So when we talk about replicating a promise program, Waterbury Promise, thanks to Richard and the city of Waterbury and being able to support Waterbury Promise being able to launch, we were incorporated in 2021 with our board of directors and support from the city and the previous mayor and Waterbury Public Schools. We actually had our first cohort. We also have the cohort model in the summer of 2022. I was hired in April of 2022, so we have been around for 4 years now. So we are the third program in Connecticut to have modeled the Promise Initiative. And similar to Hartford, the model is similar, right? We are more than just a scholarship. We've dispersed over 1.2 million in the last 4 years, and we actually worked our way up to dispersing $5,000 a year. We started off dispersing $1,250 per year per student, and we increased those increments over the last 4 years. So
Can I just ask you to stop there one second? Because I think this is important, and again, important as we're thinking about models. You didn't start at 5,000.
Right.
You started at a smaller number and grew into the 5,000
Mhm.
and allowed yourself to really get established and
Mhm.
your feet on the ground.
yes.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah.
it's important for everybody to hold on to that.
Yes.
Please, yep.
So this is our first year where we're giving up to 5,000. So we are last dollar. And when we launched our first cohort, we had over 400 eligible scholars who met our criteria of the 3.0 GPA, the 90% attendance rate, the 4-year high school residency, and completing the FAFSA. And we've seen, those numbers of eligible students be consistent every year. Similar demographics in the district, over 18,000 students in the district. But I think, as we've grown, being able to disperse that 1.2 this past year, we've seen an uptick in the amount of students who are eligible and the amount of students who actually enrolled into our program. So the first year we had 192 scholars. The second year we had 221 scholars, and then the third year we had 241, and then this year we enrolled 301 scholars. So we're seeing a high need in Waterbury, knowing that it's about 70% of students who adults age 25, only 17% of them have a 4-year degree. So I think we're really motivating students to meet our criteria and have the financial assistance to be able to go to a 2-year or 4-year. What we are seeing in Waterbury is that students who do go off to CT State, they are receiving the free tuition. So because we are last dollar, we don't have to necessarily send our scholarship dollars to them unless they actually need it or take a winter or a summer course. Students at a 4-year institution can also receive summer and winter course scholarship dollars for those courses as well. So we're really looking forward and projecting that we're going to be spending about under 1.8 million this fiscal year. And we've been projecting over the next 5 to 10 years, our scholarship dollar budget will be well over 2 million into $3 million when we're at that up to 5,000. Outside of the scholarship, we did recognize that students have a high need for emergency funding, whether it's laptops, they need food, they need help with transportation. So we built out with our partnerships to be able to support emergency funding for that as well. We also have partnerships with UConn, Eastern Connecticut State University, Post University right in Waterbury, the University of New Haven, and Quinnipiac University, giving matching dollars at different increments. I will say UNH does give the 25,000 towards tuition, and then the others give a matching 5,000 grant for our scholars as well. So being able to give up to 20 moving forward from this year to every student over 4 years is very important. And then they also can take a year off throughout their college journey. If they take a year off in the beginning, they lose out on the matching dollars, but they still have access to our scholarship once they actually return to school. We are a small team, small but mighty. We have grown so much over the last 4 years. When I was hired, I hired a director of development, and then we also have 2 in-kind city staff. So great support from the city of Waterbury and Waterbury Public Schools. So we have 2 in-kind full-time staff that we don't have to pay for that supports our work. Also, I hired a full-time college success coordinator and a part-time college success coach, knowing that students needed that intervention and that support to be successful, ranging from supporting their academics, making sure that they feel safe and they belong on campus. So being able to really be present at the colleges and universities. And at UConn Waterbury, we actually are able to hold office space and office hours in person on campus with our scholars at UConn Waterbury, and working to increase that over the state of Connecticut with other colleges as well. And our students have to go to a 2-year or 4-year here in Connecticut and be on a 2-year degree track or 4-year degree track. And similar to others, you have to maintain that 2.0 GPA or higher, making sure that you meet SAP, but also making sure that you are taking 12 credits or more.
Thank you, Kalani. I want to make just a couple of points and ask a couple of questions also. One of the points I want to make here, just to further emphasize, there have been, I'm not going to mention the programs, but there have been other promise programs outside of the state of Connecticut who have been in existence quite a long time, who invested, in one case, in excess of $100 million, in the other case, in excess of $60 million in the Promise Scholarship Program. Their goal was to open up access to college, but they didn't really look at college success rates. And in a couple of cases, after investing $100 million and or $60 million in scholarship, they looked at, was it having an impact on college success rates? And what they discovered was that even though more young people from those communities were going to college, it wasn't moving the needle at all in terms of college success rates. It was basically the same as it was $100 million earlier or $60 million earlier. So they understood that maybe they needed to do more. And one of the things they looked at was what we're describing here is this comprehensive model. And they have now embraced the importance of coaching and counseling and transition supports and services and so on. So I just want to make that point because it's very easy to get overly focused, although the scholarship and the financial aid is extremely important in terms of opening the doors and really making higher education possible. By itself, it is not the formula for college success. The comprehensive work that these Promise programs are doing with students, in many cases every day from the start to the end and beyond of college, is really a key fundamental part of the work and part of the program. So I just want to emphasize that. And other programs, it took $100 million, $60 million to learn that lesson. I do want to just say one other thing, and then I want to ask a couple questions. In none of your programs, they are not need-based, correct? They
No.
are, as you said, residency-based and academic achievement-based.
Yes, I
correct?
pretty much call it a merit-based scholarship
merit-based
because there is a GPA requirement.
GPA requirement, which is
Mhm.
also merit. Yep. But is it fair to say that in the case of each of these programs, your student population is majority low income population? So it is meeting need, but it is not a need requirement or need-based program. Is that fair to say?
I
Yep.
would, I would say it's fair to say, I think you have to focus on what your core goal is. Our goal was to maintain an economically diverse and vibrant city. So we specifically wanted to keep middle class and upper middle class parents and families in the city.
It's a reason to live in New
yeah,
Haven.
yes.
Yep. Yep. And others would agree with that?
Yeah, for us, it reflects Hartford's population, which is what we expected and wanted. So again, not 75% Pell eligible, 70 to 75% first gen college.
Yep.
students.
Okay. And let me just ask each of you all a question.
Mm.
Kalani, I want to start with you. And what is your, you don't have to list all but what are your primary sources of funding?
Our primary sources, public-private, but the city invested over 6.25 million within the first couple years. And then we have the Connecticut Community Foundation supporting the disbursement of our scholarships and other banks and private foundations that support our
But
work
the
as well.
city was the key
Yeah.
component and is still a
And
key
the Cigna Foundation supported at a large level too when we started.
because this is important also in terms of differences in terms of funding.
Mhm.
Sivan, what are your sources of funding?
Yeah, so our largest sources of funding are coming from corporations and then foundations. The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving in terms of operations, but other foundations also that support us, and then a number of the corporation and corporate foundations. And then we have individual donors who are committed to the
But fair to say vast
yeah.
majority private funding sources?
Yes, so we did this year get some funding from the city of Hartford. We got 150,000, and but that the main is coming from
Private
corporate and
sources.
private.
New Haven?
First, I wanted to ask when we get there is whether your scholarship is restricted to tuition, applied to tuition, or can it be applied to the total cost of education?
It's applied to the total cost. Yep. As a last dollar.
And Sivan?
And last dollar.
Yeah, ours is also anything on the fee bill.
Okay, great. Our scholarship is, well, so you're talking about the scholarship or program overall?
Both, yep, your costs.
Yes, I would say we're completely privately funded. We don't have any public funds. And we do have a couple of very large donors. And we get money from foundations, business, the whole gamut, but we do not have public funding at this
Do you want
point.
to talk about your largest donor?
I guess everyone knows who they are.
Go ahead.
Unlike Kalamazoo,
Go
which
ahead.
we don't know.
Go ahead.
Well, we kind of do. Primarily the main funding of the scholarship is Yale University. The city, I do want to say that the city was instrumental in developing the Promise program. That was developed. That was something that John DeStefano really looked around and saw what was going on in Kalamazoo and other cities, and many of these mayors chit chat and share practices. And so I don't want to underestimate the role of the city, but funding is all private dollars. I mean, we have gotten some ARPA funds. So that's
Good.
kind
Okay,
of
just I wanted to make sure that's on the record in terms of the various sources of funding and formulas for funding for the programs. Any questions? Anything that anybody has on the Zoom? I want to make sure you all have a chance. Any questions, comments, things you want to add?
one.
Anybody? Okay, we're going to
I
continue.
would say just as the Promise programs, because it is a combination of funding, perhaps the task force or the chairs might ask the colleges to present what they bring to the table, why they fund it, how they're funding their match,
Mhm.
because that's really critical.
Yep.
Sorry, Mona.
No, it's a great
Mona,
suggestion,
for
and
being here.
they're like critical partners.
Absolutely.
Like robust and critical partners. So we'll make sure there's an opportunity. Let me just move on here. If there's no other questions or comments, let me just move on. I did ask each of the Promise programs to bring some fee bills, and we'll share this electronically. You don't have those, do you, Jess? So we'll share those electronically after this meeting so that you all have that. But I just wanted everybody to have a sense. And Mona, you may or not have that. Do you have copies? Do you have
Yeah.
extra copies that I could share with Mona? You have it? Okay, good, Mona. Thank you. So just examples of fee bills to be able to demonstrate the impact that the scholarship has. Because look, the billing for college is not an easy thing to understand. That's why we need Mona constantly to help us understand this. It can be a mystery to folks. It can be very difficult and complicated to many folks. And frankly, it's one of the things that is really important in terms of the coaching and relationships that programs have with scholars and with their families, because in many cases, these are first generation students. They don't have anyone in their family that has this sort of frame of reference. And again, we know this is complicated for everybody to try to figure out. So it's particularly important to help make this clear. What is a fee bill and what are these various notations on the fee bill? So I asked each of the programs to bring examples of a college fee bill and what the impact is of their scholarship. Savannah, we'll start with you. Is there anything you want to highlight here? We're not going to go through each of these, but is there anything you'd like to highlight in terms of fee bills and impact? And are these the ones you brought, Savannah? Am I looking at those?
So I brought two from out of state just to show, but from the same university, North Carolina A&T. Part of the difference here was I did a senior versus a freshman because of the difference in the scholarship amount, right? So the senior had, and so out of state don't put our scholarship on the fee bill initially, and so then we come back in as we get the fee bill from the student. So this student ended up, once we applied the 2,500, they very smartly have figured out getting driver's license and some residency in North Carolina, so it lowered their tuition costs, but their balance due was $561. They got the full 2,500 from us for the semester.
5,000 for the year, 2,500 for this particular semester.
Right, 2,500.
And what was the total? What was the total cost have been? Total cost of education for that student?
So for the semester, the total was $9,453 for the semester. They then got a merit scholarship, a North Carolina Next scholarship.
So at North Carolina A&T, at HBCU in North Carolina, the total cost for the year would be approximately $20,000.
That was for the student who had North Carolina.
I understand.
The next example was
Did that include room and board?
It does, but that's because they again their in-state tuition was $1,700.
They're receiving in-state benefits
because they changed it. The next one gives you more of an example of what a full charge is. So for this freshman, total cost for the semester was $16,554. And then what they had due after their merit scholarship from North Carolina A&T and their federal Pell Grant was $9,364.21. They got then our full 2,500 for the semester, and they got $6,864.21 from the Greater Futures Hartford Foundation Scholarship. So as a result, they have a zero balance for this semester. And that same thing will be for next semester because that's what they're eligible for up to 25,000 for the year between the two
And
scholarships.
am I right in saying in both cases, no debt, no loans?
No, yes, on both of these students, no loans. And the idea behind the Hartford Foundation was they studied 400 of our fee bills and tried to come up with a number that by their study, 93% of our students going forward would not have had to take out loans or work study. That was how the
So in these cases, out-of-state student going to North Carolina A&T HBCU, about $33,000 in total annual cost. And if you were in state, about $20,000 for total cost.
Right.
It's great. Any questions or comments on any of that? That's important, Savon. Thank you. Kalanda, is this your set?
Yeah, so I put together a few fee bills just because
I'm sorry, Kalanda, I'm gonna interrupt. We're at 1:00. We're going to try to, I think we might be able to wrap up around 1:15, about 75 minutes. We've asked again for 90 minutes for these meetings, but I'm going to shoot for 75 minutes when we can. If we have more things to discuss, we will, but just want to give us a time check.
Yes, so I put together a packet. I just wanted to show in-state, our in-state colleges, for example, Southern, Central, and a few of our private institutions here in Connecticut. So some of our students, majority of our students are receiving this year the 2,500. What I didn't include is some seniors who were receiving the 1,250 per year. So I can send you that just so that you can see that there's a larger gap. But for this, I'm showing the up to 5,000 for the year. So you can see the first student is housing and ended up being able to have a zero balance at Southern, and they're receiving also Gear Up and additional scholarships. So I just want to also name that we are serving low and moderate students in Waterbury. So we do see students doing payment plans.
Not limited to low and moderate,
Not
but
limited.
predominantly,
Yes.
currently low and moderate.
Yes, and 68% are first gen as well.
Because on theirs, that student the family paid 5,298.
Right, and decided not to take out student loans.
Right.
So you do see that. So I gave some other examples in there where you will see some student loans being taken out, and then you'll also see students who are not housing on campus or needing meal plans, and they also have a zero balance utilizing our scholarship as well. And I gave some examples of students who are Pell eligible and or receiving Robertus. We typically don't see a large amount due unless they're at a Quinnipiac or a private institution. I also included the University of New Haven in here. This student isn't housing, but ended up having a zero balance as well. So I just gave some differentiation so that you can continue to review those fee bills.
Let's just go through this quickly just for a second.
Mhm.
So in terms of the total cost at University of Hartford, it looks like we're looking at approximately $50,000 for the year. At Quinnipiac, it looks like we're looking at $44,000 for the year. At trying to look at Central, if I can look at the total cost at Central, I'm not sure I have that, but
Quinnipiac is 44 for the semester. I
For the
think.
semester, so we'll have to double that for the year.
44 for the semester. Yikes.
Cost of college.
Mhm.
Yikes. And do you know approximately what the annual cost is at Central?
I don't, but I can get it.
But certainly less, either, I'm going to guess in the neighborhood of $28,000 to $30,000.
Similar, yeah, to Southern.
And in Eastern, excuse me, about the same, approximately $30,000 at Eastern.
Depending on if they're housing or not. Mm-hmm.
And UConn, do you have a sense figure for what is the average total cost of UConn? The 36,000?
Yes, but that would include the indirect expenses for an in-state student. So
I'm at in-state.
Yep. Oh, uh-huh. So on the bill would probably be 20 something, split between fall and spring,
Mhm.
something, yeah.
And let me just, so Kalanda, in terms of the variety of colleges and students that you shared,
Mm.
it's fair to say that in some cases, students might be making a decision to not live on campus because it is less expensive to commute in some cases where they're able to commute. I assume you see some of that also with University of New Haven. We see that with some Hartford Promise students, I know, also see that. Secondly, that the choice of college can vary greatly in terms of the overall cost of that college, from it may be as high as $80,000 to as low as 20-some thousand dollars in these cases, and that the scholarships being provided by each of the programs in some cases completely covers the cost of attendance, the cost of education. In other cases, it partially covers where there may be a loan or relatively small loans. Do you have a sense of Kalanda, average student, what their loans would be, those students that need to take, whether it's Stafford loans or otherwise? Do you have a sense of what it is?
It's less than 10,000.
Less than
Yeah.
$10,000 for your students? Savon, what would you say? Students that have had to take loans?
I think that really varies because our out-of-state students, like students who choose to go to Howard or places, are going to have more significant loans. Those students who are in-state are probably
Do you have a
falling
sense of the
in
range? What
10,000.
the range might be?
I mean, some of them are taking out loans before this new scholarship happened. Some of them are taking out 7,000 to 10,000 a year because of
Okay.
cost.
I will add, if they're going to, let's say, a UNH or a Quinnipiac, we may see an uptick in the amount of student loan they take out, or private, unfortunately.
Absolutely. You have a sense of that, Patricia?
It really varies. I would say most of our students coming out of UConn are coming out debt free.
Good.
And however, what I would like to say is that a part of our equation is we have a very deep and robust talent and internship program, and that is part of the funding that students have. So let's say we take a UConn student, they're getting whatever they're getting from us, which is really actually quite generous, but it doesn't cover everything. But we do have a significant population who we're placing in negotiated internships, paid internships, and those students are making $6,000 per summer. So when you add that over 4 years, that's a significant. So many of our students are coming out actually with no debt.
An additional benefit.
Yes.
Significant additional
Yes.
benefit.
Can I ask just a question? I love the internship program, and the 6,000 is awesome. Are most of your internships also through Yale and Yale New Haven Health?
Not necessarily. That's where we started. So this year we had about 100 internships at Yale, and then around 70 or so across the city and other firms throughout.
And it's fair to say here,
Yeah.
the benefit goes both ways. The students receive a significant benefit of experience. The employers receive a significant insertion of talent into their organization.
Correct. But I do make it clear that we do not have any unpaid internships.
Yeah.
Right.
All of our internships are paid. And
That's
we, between that plus, we have a really growing talent placement in permanent jobs. So we just track all that. But that's part of those paid internships are really part of the package. And so like at Yale, our students are coming out with obviously no loan because they cover families up to 100 or 125, no loans and whatnot. But we did have just one or two instances where maybe at one of the institutions like Wesleyan or Conn College, actually the student cannot accept the loan because the financial aid package covered all their needs. So once again, we don't go over total cost of education, and if it goes over, then our grant cannot come in.
Understood.
I
Um,
think Patricia also made a really good point about unpaid internships and something just to recognize in general, right? There's a lot of inequity in that whole idea of unpaid internships and who can afford to take them. Our students can't. So we've had to raise money to support a program to fund students who want to take unpaid internships because they can't otherwise do it. And so it's just something the state, because the state has internships that are unpaid. And so just want to make the point that that is not something that's really an equitable thing.
Yep.
Mhm. Same
Important point.
same in Waterbury.
Yep.
We had to fundraise for additional dollars to support unpaid internships as well.
Mona, I want to give you a chance. Anything you want to share, weigh in on here, or comments or questions? Nope, you're good? Okay. Thank you all. So again, we just wanted to give this as a bit of a beginning of a foundation in terms of what the various programs are providing and what the cost is of attending higher education and how these programs and these scholarships impact that cost and in many cases can completely cover that cost. We'll share these documents with you all electronically so that you'll have them to look at after the meeting. I just want to go to folks who are on the Zoom and ask again if there's anybody that has anything they'd like to add or any questions that they have. If not, I'll move on. One thing I want to say in terms of just providing a bit of a frame for the work of the group, and I'll also share this with you all following the meeting in the notes. But it's a few key questions here. One of the questions is, what is the problem we are trying to solve in this group, in this task force? What is the problem we are trying to solve? And maybe what are the problems we are trying to solve? Why will it matter what we recommend from this group? Why does it or why will it matter? And that really speaks to what's the value proposition for the recommendations that come out of this group and how to make sure that it's seen as having extraordinary value. Okay, to me, those are sort of the guiding questions and points that we want to make sure that we address. The next meeting and I do want to talk about the work groups just for a moment, but the next meeting of this group is scheduled for October 22nd. And we're going to have a presentation from folks in the State Department of Education on some of the, it's going to be more of a data dive, if you will, and going to look at some of the academic issues that need to be addressed and sort of a comparison on that. And we will continue this conversation also. I do want to.
Would that be the high school and college?
I think it's
or
going to be
both?
mainly high school. It's going to
High
be
school,
mainly
okay.
K through 12.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll try to have some college information, but it's mainly going to be K through 12. I do want to say that we have two work groups that are now in place. One work group is working on the ideas for recommendations for a Connecticut promise, a statewide promise. The other work group is working on support, resources, financial support for the existing promise programs and for the potential expansion to other municipalities and communities, new promise programs. Both of those work groups have met and are active and engaged and will be bringing initial recommendations to the task force probably by the fourth meeting or so, let me say, okay? But I want to say those groups are in motion. Anything else before we adjourn? Anything you all want to add that you haven't had a chance, or anybody on the Zooms have anything?
Well, what I would add is congratulations goes out. We now have a fourth Promise program, Bridgeport Promise, announced its launch today in
Today.
Bridgeport with their contingent. The mayor, Faith Villegas, will be leading that under the Bridgeport Public Education Fund.
That is,
Congratulations, Bridgeport.
that is good news. Thank you for sharing that. I know they've been hard at work on that for a long time, so it's nice to hear that actually has been born. They've been in labor a long time.
I'd say that was a big baby.
That's a big baby. Thank you for that. Okay, if no other comments or input, we stand adjourned, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Richard.